This is Slate Brett's, Taylor Lowe, and Izzy Saboro's Special Senses Project. To begin, we have the 5 receptors. Chemoreceptors, stimulated by changes in the chemical concentration of a substance. Mechanoreceptors, stimulated by changes in pressure or movement. Thermoreceptors, stimulated by changes in temperature. Photoreceptors, stimulated by light energy. And nociceptors, stimulated by tissue damage. And the difference between sensation and perception is sensation is the process of sensing our environment through the 5 senses, and perception is the way we interpret these sensations and make sense of what's around us. So next we have the sense of smell. Here are the organs and structures involved. According to Thaco.com, here are the olfactory system structures. So we have the nose, an opening containing nasal passages that allow outside air to flow into the nasal cavity. Then we have the nasal cavity, a cavity divided by the nasal septum into left and right passages. It's lined with mucosa. The olfactory epithelium, specialized type of epithelial tissue in the nasal cavities that contain olfactory nerve cells and receptor nerve cells. Then we have the cribriform plate, a porous extension of the ethmoid bone which separates the nasal cavity from the brain. And we have the olfactory nerve, the nerve involved in olfaction. Olfactory nerve fibers extend from the mucous membrane through the cribriform plate to the olfactory bulbs. Olfactory bulbs, a bulb-shaped structure in the forebrain where olfactory nerve ends and the olfactory tract begins. The olfactory tract is a band of nerve fibers that extend from each olfactory bulb to the olfactory cortex of the brain. And lastly, the olfactory cortex area of the cerebral cortex that processes information about odors and receives nerve signals from the olfactory bulbs. So on the left we have a diagram which just labels the parts of the nose. And olfactory receptors, are also known as odor receptors, are expressed in the cell membranes of olfactory receptor neurons and are responsible for the detection of odorants which give rise to the sense of smell. And then we have the steps of stimulation. So first, odor molecules float in the air and reach the nostrils, and they dissolve in the mucus. Next, underneath the mucus, the olfactory epithelium, specialized receptor cells called olfactory receptor neurons decide what the odor is, and those neurons are capable of detecting thousands of different odors. The olfactory receptor neurons send the information to the olfactory bulbs, which are located at the back of the nose. The olfactory bulbs are sensory receptors that are actually part of the brain, which send messages directly to the limbic system. And lastly, these brain centers sense odors and access memories to remind us of people, places, and events associated with these olfactory sensations. So then we have smell discrimination. Each sensory cell has only one type of odor receptor. There are more smells in the environment than there are odor receptors. One molecule can stimulate a combination of these receptors, creating a unique representation in the brain of a particular smell. And then why does sniffing increase the smell stimulus? It increases our ability to smell, enhancing the detection of odorous molecules in the air, and a peripheral drive in the brain, which is the firing of neurons in the olfactory bulb. How do adaptations to smell occur? Adaptations to smell occur rapidly and almost complete because of the special chemical system that balances the response of olfactory receptors to odors, nose, mouth, or throat. In olfactory disorder, anosmia, the complete inability to detect odors, being born without the ability to detect odors. How taste and smell are linked. Smell and taste belong to a chemical sensing system, chemosensation. The process of smelling and tasting begins when molecules are released by the things around us, stimulate special nerve cells in the nose, is called congenital anosmia. An interesting fact is that women have a better sense of smell than men.
Mouth, taste. Taste buds are sensory organs on your tongue. They allow you to experience tastes that are sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. The bumps on your tongue are called papillae, and most of them contain taste buds. Darkly staining cells in a taste bud are called gustatory cells. Taste cells stand in synaptic contact with sensory nerve fibers of the facial, glossopharyngeal, or vagus nerves. Taste buds have a very sensitive microscopic hairs that are called microvilli. Those tiny hairs' job is to send messages to the brain about how something tastes. The hairs that project through the inner portion of the taste bud are called the gustatory hairs. How we taste things. When something is put in your mouth, taste buds send information to your brain that helps you learn if it tastes sweet or salty, for example. Research has shown that cells and taste buds will communicate with each other. They will accept, reject, and modify the taste stimuli through a network of chemical and electrical signals to the brain. 5 primary taste sensations. Sweet, caused by sugars and other compounds. Sour, caused by acidic H plus ions. Salty, caused by metal ions, sodium, potassium. Bitter, caused by alkaloids. Umami. Meaty taste caused by amino acids. Where else are taste receptors and why? Other than your tongue, taste receptors can be found in the gastrointestinal tract. They serve as nutrient sensors and are able to regulate hormonal responses. These substances regulate feelings of hunger, stimulate digestion of fat and protein, and stimulate insulin secretion. In healthy people, taste receptors help control digestion and metabolism. Taste disorder, dysgeusia. Dysgeusia is a condition where a foul, salty, rancid, or metallic taste will linger in the mouth. This is a distortion to the sense of taste. Interesting fact about taste. Your tongue can get fat. If you get fat, so does your tongue. The human tongue actually has a high percentage of fat, and there is a correlation between tongue fat volume and obesity. A study in the journal Sleep showed having a larger tongue with levels of fat may be a risk factor for obstructive sleep apnea, a serious disorder in which a person repeatedly stops and starts breathing while sleeping in obese adults.
Equilibrium. The outer ear collects sound. The pinna, aka the auricle, the outside of the ear, skin covering over contoured cartilage. It is held in place by muscles and ligaments on either side of the head near the area that the jaw meets the skull. Sounds travel through the pinna. External auditory canal. Passageway that leads from the outside of the head to the tympanic membrane or eardrum membrane of each ear. Passage is comprised of bone and skin leading vibrations and sound waves to the eardrum. The ceruminous glands, sweat glands, located subcutaneously to the external auditory canal in the outer 1/3 part of the ear. Ceruminous glands are simple coiled tubular glands made up of an inner secretory layer of cells and an outer myoepithelial layer of cells. They are classified as apocrine glands. Tympanic membrane is a membrane which vibrates in response to sound waves. In humans and other vertebrates, it forms the eardrum between the outer and middle ear. The middle ear. The lateral border in the middle ear is formed mainly of the tympanic membrane. It helps transport waves. Medial border is formed by the petrous bone and is related to posterior semicircle canal, along with a few more structures. It aids in moving sound waves to the eardrum. The auditory tube links the nasopharynx to the middle ear. It can open to let small amount of air through to prevent damage to equalizing pressure between the middle ear and the atmosphere. The ossicles is an assembly of the 3 smallest bones in the ear. 1. The hammer is embedded in the fibrous layer of the tympanic membrane. It transports the sound vibrations from the eardrum to the incus. The anvil is the second of the ossicles, which acts to transmit sounds. It is shaped like an anvil and has a long limb and a short limb that protrude from the point of articulation with the malleus and conveys vibrations to the stapes. A stirrup is a shaped bone that stirrup-shaped bone that articulates with the anvil. It transmits vibrations from the anvil to the oval window that it rests upon. The inner ear. Osseous labyrinth is a bony outer wall of the inner ear, and the temporal bone contains structures detrimental to hearing, like cochlea and semicircular canals. The cochlea is dedicated to hearing, converting sound pressure patterns from the outer ear into electrochemical impulses, which are passed on to the brain via the auditory nerve. Vestibule is the central part of the bony labyrinth in the inner ear and is situated medial to the eardrum, or the tympanic cavity, behind the cochlea and in front of the semicircular canals. Semicircular canals are 3 fluid-filled bony channels in the inner ear. They are situated at right angles to each other and provide information about orientation to the brain to help maintain balance. The perilymph is the fluid between the membranous labyrinth of the ear and the bone that encloses it. The membranous labyrinth is a collection of fluid-filled tubes and chambers which contain the receptors for the senses of equilibrium and hearing. The mechanism of hearing. According to Medical Encyclopedia, our ability to hear depends on a complex series of events that occur in the ear. Sound waves in the air are transmitted as vibrations through a series of structures with receptors for hearing. The organ of the chordae in the inner ear. Inside the organ of the chordae, these physical vibrations are detected by sensory hair cells, which respond by producing electrical signals. Nerves carry these signals to the brain where they are interpreted. Sounds of different frequencies stimulate hair cells in different parts of the organ of chordae, allowing us to perceive the subtleties of the sound such as speech and music. The ear is made up of 3 parts, the outer, middle, and inner ear. All 3 parts of the ear are important for detecting sound by working together to move sound from the outer part through the middle and into the inner ear. Ear also helps to maintain balance. Static versus dynamic equilibrium. Dynamic equilibrium reactants are converted to products, and products are converted to reactants at an equal and constant rate. Reactions do not necessarily, and most often do not, end up with equal concentrations. Equilibrium is the state of equal opposite rates, not equal concentrations. Static mechanical equilibrium occurs when all particles in the reactions are at rest and there is no motion between reactants and products. Static equilibrium can also be seen as steady state system in physics based view. Dynamic forces are not acting on the potential energies of the reverse and forward reactions. To achieve equal pressure in the inner and outer ear, the narrow Eustachian tube that connects the middle ear to the back of the nose acts to equalize the pressure. It acts as a pressure valve. Its job is to keep the pressure equalized on both sides of the eardrum. Meniere's disease is an inner ear disorder that causes episodes of vertigo. Symptoms include a spinning sensation, hearing loss, ear ringing, and ear pressure. The vertigo may cause severe nausea and imbalance. Hearing loss may become permanent with this disease. Auditory adaptation. Our ears adapt to loud sound as it hits the small bones located in the inner ear. The loud sounds leads the inner ear bones to contract. This contraction causes the reduction or delay of transmission of sound vibrations to the inner ear. Interesting fact, your ability to hear high frequencies deteriorates as you get older. Specifically, the hair cells closest to your outer ear begin to break down, which make it harder and harder to hear high frequency sounds, like the sounds of ocean waves.